Hello everyone. I'm Abhishek Syal, second year MBA at Sloan, and also I'm the founder and managing trustee at Arise. Arise is a nonprofit working to develop self-learning resources for differently abled. We are a nonprofit based out of India, and we provide emphasis on augmenting the classroom learning with self-learning resources that are specially catered to a specific learning disability. Um, when we look at differently able children, we think about how do they learn, what is the learning mechanism, and therefore we design our whole content and services and tools around their learning mechanism. So right now, quickly in a short chat, I'm going to talk about in particular how universal accessibility is kind of what is lacking in India versus what I have seen personally in the US and Europe. Um, So in India, when we go out and when we reach out to our partner organizations, we work with Institute for the Blind, IAMD in Chandigarh, and we saw that most of the children, they just typically stay inside the hostels or the schools or walk very nearby around where they are, where they can go. Moreover, there is not much of, I would say, the public infrastructure available in place uh, for the universal access, whether it's visually challenged, whether it's people with physical disability or people on wheelchairs who are moving around. Um, so let me just tell you with an example. There's so many potholes on the roads. Most of the times there are not many pavements, and even if the pavement is there for pedestrians, it's just broken. Um, The other thing is that even if you observe the payments, and let's say they're in a correct state, when it comes to a turn or when it comes to where you would generally cross the road to the other side, the pavement is not in a is not cut in a slanting way so that it joins the road. So that if a person is on wheelchair and it's on an elevated height on the pavement, he can go on one particular side, slide down this short ramp from the pavement to the road, and then cross the road, and then slide up on the wheelchair onto the other side of the road and other side of the pavement and go around. Uh, Such systems are not thought about in India. So the public accessibility is infrastructure wise is very poor, I would say. And on top of that, for the visually challenged, let's say this is not a problem, they can still remember once they explore the area around them with their game. Um, but however, I find the sensitivity or the awareness in the people towards the difficulties faced by visually challenged or people with on wheelchairs to be really really low. Um, when we compare with people in the US or Europe, um, people generally help. Um, Otherwise, they generally give way, and they are very helpful in general, and they know what to do. Um, for example, the people with the wheelchairs, they provide wheelchairs that they control so they can go around. And also, you would see not only in places just like airports in India, but also in other places such as schools, such as universities, and even other places, government offices. Um, People on wheelchairs can request help so that in case wheelchairs by themselves cannot go, there is someone who can help them move. For example, I saw on the public transport, like if you're moving on subway, so there are a lot of elevators where the people on wheelchairs can go in the elevator, go down underground on the subway platform, stay on the subway platform, and when the subway train comes, um, they push a button and ask for help. And usually the employees of, of the metro system or the subway system, they come out, they help them with the wheelchair, put them along to the side in a particular compartment, and put a belt on them. And that has what I've seen in Boston area. I see it almost every other day. It's very common for people on wheelchairs to commute here. The second thing that I remember is in Europe, when I was visiting, um, people on wheelchairs also travel by buses. So what happens is their buses or the trams or the buses system, especially the level of the bus is at the level of the pavement. So and even in Boston, so what happens when the driver stops? He pushes out a button, and because of which there's a flap which goes out from the bus floor to the pavement, and then the person on the wheelchair can drive the wheelchair inside. So after that, there is a space in the bus where the wheelchair can just sit. Um, there's a seat belts which are put around the person on the wheelchair, um, so that when the bus is turned, the wheelchair and the person doesn't just fall off or tip off. This way, the person in the wheelchair is held secure, and then wherever they stop, they have to get out. The bus driver comes out, removes the seat belts, and the person gets out. Um, this environment has been produced very conducive to the locomotion and movement or transportation of a person on a wheelchair from one place to another. The second category that I would pick is difficult for people to move around is visually challenged. Um, Generally, visually challenged people, they need a place which is stable or um, which is easy to walk around or easy to learn or memorize. And even if it is harder, they still have got this whole entire very strong visual memory, and that very strong memory um, of learning, as in how the terrain is. So in the sense, like they are carrying out a topographic survey of contours along as they go, as they walk around, and also the geographic terrain of the place wherever they go, so they can remember that quite well, and they have a very good sense of direction. However, what I've found is that people in the US, and even in Europe, since they follow the traffic light system very significantly, and there is emphasis uh, on the pedestrian having the advantage to cross the road rather than cars having the first advantage to move along the road on zebra crossings. So, as there are rules, therefore, a visually challenged person, let's say there is no traffic light, there's a empty road or a blank road, and then there's a zebra crossing on between. If the visually challenged person can start crossing, he doesn't need to see either side because the cars will stop, and they have to stop, whether it's a sighted person or any person, and let the pedestrians pass through first. On the second exam point, where there are traffic lights, there are also traffic lights for pedestrians for the zebra crossing. So let's in one particular direction, there's a red light, then there's a green light for the per people to cross over to the other side. And these many of these pedestrian lights, they they show you a green light sign for walking, but they also have this sound system where they have a particular frequency of sound for the person when it's a red light, and when it's a green light there's another frequency of the sound, so that people who cannot see but they can hear, they know that it's a green light for them to cross onto the other side, and therefore they're able to cross. And in case if they are going in the wrong direction, and as they're walking with the white stick, other people help them move across to the other side. So this in general has raised more awareness in the public of how to help them locomote. What I've seen in India, because we generally give a preference to cars because there's so much of traffic, but there's a lot of traffic at other places too, like in New York, in Boston, and most of the metros, major cities in the world. However, their infrastructure is developed so that they can accommodate all these other people who have certain um, con- who cannot just move as freely as we do. Um, and they really have built this infrastructure and also the public awareness around it. One thing though is that at least with the building of pavement, pedestrian pavements, even if they're quite broken, a little broken, it does help the visually challenged because to move and to understand where he's going, because there's this it's a narrow path. So you can with a cane, if you do left and right, you can understand like what is the length of the what is the breadth of the pavement, and therefore in which direction you should move. However, with the ground, with just the ground, it's a little difficult. So that's another thing which I've observed, especially with visually challenged in India, and that also limits their um, locomotion. Now think about that if you are visually challenged or if you're a person with let's say a person in a wheelchair, would you like to sit inside the house all day? Is that the kind of life that you want? I mean, it does seem like that you're a prisoner and there is no fault of your own. Um, and I think you have a right to live and you have the right to explore the world around you. And, and, and we as human beings have this obligation, and we as Indians have these obligations for these set of people to help them move around, not just from the infrastructure perspective, but also from the sensitivity and awareness and the empathetic perspective. That we should also be concerned about their issues that they face, understand that if we were on their space, is that the life we would want to live? Now, currently, we are developing this entire suite of mobile apps, which is good. And I also got to know that recently that there would be an app where basically people are thinking about apps and phones and that they can reach and communicate, which is great. But if you cannot just move out of your place beyond those four walls, it just feels that you're just stuck and just you cannot go out. And that's one thing which I would like to raise a small concern as to how much of a physical um, locomotion is important to man, not just from the perspective of entertainment or from the perspective of anything, but from the perspective of just going out and seeing how the world is. And we should make that a very um, we should make that possible for them. So by laying out the basic infrastructure and also by creating awareness and empathy in people, I think the first step would be to create awareness and empathy in people, to raise this as an issue that public infrastructure is important. The other thing which I found, like forget about even like walking around the roads in India when we were doing this, when we were talking with different people, many of the and the idea of the government to provide this integrated education system where the kids or kids with disabilities would go to normal schools and they would interact and they would have a normal education, like the inclusive education. It sounds really good, but it's really hard to achieve. Many of our buildings, in our workplaces, in schools, in government institutions, in public services, in offices, they are not at all accessible to physically challenged, to deaf and to people who are visually challenged. Both these set of people, they're just not accessible. If you're in a wheelchair and there are just stairs, at the entrance. There is no ramp. How can you get a wheelchair up? And there is no person in the office who will come out to help you pick you up from the wheelchair and then also with your wheelchair put you up the steps. How can you even get inside the building when there are just steps at the entrance at the front door and there is no ramp so that the wheelchair can slide up? Or when there's so much rush, when so many people are just hustling and bustling, and a person with a white cane just comes in, he feels like there's a stampede around him, there's so much noise around him that he cannot understand it, and nobody is there to hold his hand and to walk him up that flight of stairs at the entrance of the door of a crowded hospital or of a crowded public service office where you want to get your driver license or where you want to get some registry done, like anything done. This is a real issue here, and the real issue is like, well, these visually challenged might not go to get a driver license, but they would definitely go to get their voter card or to get their passport done. And if they just cannot feel that people around them can help them to walk around, or there is public infrastructure that in place that can help them move around to these buildings, then they're just not gonna go. And the fault doesn't lie with them, the fault lies with us. That number one, we are not helping them out in the current situation that they're in. And number two, we are not providing adequate infrastructure through with the addition of either ramps or either pavements or either sound-based mechanisms that can guide them through their walking around or moving around, or whether the people themselves can help them in case such infrastructure systems are not available. So I suggest the first step is to just raise awareness, and it will come when we just get out of our chairs, get out of our comfortable lives, and actually just visit them and talk to them and understand what they face as real challenges day to day. Talk to them, understand them, talk to five other people, five of your best friends or other people we know whom you have not gone with and whom you are not very who are not in the same city. Talk to those five people and share your experience and ask them to go out. And by this way, if we can just spread it around, just first awareness in India, I think that's a very huge step. And if we just do that successfully, it will reach government, it will reach people who make policy decisions, it will reach architects, and it will reach other people too who make these decisions for urban infrastructure and transportation. And I hope that it doesn't take us 10 years to achieve this change, but it takes us at least five or less number of years to achieve the change in infrastructure. If there are any more questions, please feel free to, or if you have thoughts about it, please feel free to reach out to me. My email ID is abhishek.syal@ariseimpact.org. Um, I will spell it out: ABHISHEK dot SYAL ARISEIMPACT dot org. It has been really nice talking on this, and I thought thank Saurabh Arora, who's my very good friend from Chandigarh, to give me a chance to think about this topic and to raise this issue and ask me to talk about it. I hope that this presentation was helpful to you, and I hope that you would share it with others as well. Thank you.